two big overarching statements as I take you through some of these case studies. First thing is a quote that at this point I should just tattoo on myself. Not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. I say this because, we've talked about objectives, KPIs, metrics, and a lot of times you will look at these case studies and you'll want to ask a question like, how many people did it reach? That might not count to what success counts for that campaign. And then also at the same time, as we're thinking about it, also think about the impact that can happen without you being able to actually measure it. There's some things that aren't subject to like the number that's attached to them. The three things I want you to consider is 1, what the definition of success would be. 2, the target and why they should care. And 3, how we got them there. One of the things that happens during elections, quite unfortunately and horribly, is that there's a very significant increase in GBV. And specifically, we are talking about violence against women in elections, which is where the VAWI thing comes in for the people who aren't in that sector. So we had 2 different campaigns that we ran simultaneously during this election. Both of them achieved the objectives they were trying to achieve. However, even though they were targeting similar people, the approaches were significantly different. First one here, the 1195, was something we did for Hack, and they were specifically trying to promote the hotline. So, if you are a victim, if you know someone who's a victim, please call this number. And the second one was an awareness campaign trying to kind of showcase what was happening with how women candidates were being treated. The outcomes of this is the 1195 had a pretty significant increase in the number of calls that they were expecting on that hotline against what we're targeting. So it was like a 35% increase, basically above what we were targeting. And the Ugly Words one, the Spotlight on VAWI, won 2 Gold Polaris Awards. The second one was running at the same time, running on a much smaller budget, so not as many views, but it did drive a lot of the impact that we needed to drive. This worked for a few different reasons. One, because it was highly targeted, and it was highly targeted to people in a specific space. This was more like remarketing. This was more very specific to the people who needed to see it. It had a very, very high click-through rate. I remember on Google looking at some of the clicks on this, and it was extremely high. This got more calls than the other one. Much smaller budget, much more conversions, and it had a call button. So not just clicks, but then got people to do what we wanted them to do. The next case study is going to be around this idea I was talking about for targeting. So here we're talking about SRH, so sexual reproductive health, and 2 different case studies around this. 2 different time periods as well. In 2019, we were trying to push PrEP and the test kits for that. However, there was a national PrEP campaign which was done by PSI, which I think the guys are like next door or something. This wasn't that. This was very specifically talking to women in a certain part of Kiambu, and a specific demographic of women. The data showed us that they were not responding to any of the other communication that was going to them. They basically were not responding to a lot of what was happening. So we came up with several different tactics on how do you speak to this person in a way that they would actually engage with it. We learned that storytelling was very important. The soap opera approach, very important. We learned that endorsement was very important. And at the time, this is before a lot of the things that followed, there were people like Samido who had a massive amount of influence on what these girls listened to and believed and followed. And we also learned that, weirdly enough, video was very important. So of all the different mediums that they believed and had affinity for, radio, not so much, video, definitely. So this is an ongoing campaign that we have going on right now with the Council for Responsible Social Media on misinformation, especially about sexual reproductive health. It's going on right now, and it's had very interesting impact because the main reason it existed was awareness and policy change. So unlike the other one where we're trying to get the girl herself to do something, in this case, we're trying to get the actors in the space to make a move. We started this process like 2 years ago, right? Where we started crafting messaging, testing that messaging, small budgets, crafting, testing, looking at what insight works, this, that, and the other, until we eventually learned what the main triggers were, what the main concerns were when it comes to SRH. It's a wide space. What are the things that you can actually influence? The second thing that kind of came out of this is being specific makes a difference. So talking about misinformation around sexual health is not necessarily something that is going to immediately resonate with people. But if you say Facebook is allowing, what were the beads called? Yoni pearls and yoni beads to be sold, even though they are aware that this is something that is dangerous. You picked a specific thing that they have to respond to, they have to react to, they have to do something about. We had to stop the Yoni Pearls campaign because Facebook reacted. Well, Facebook didn't. YouTube did immediately. They even issued a statement. The Guardian wrote an article. YouTube demonetized the creators who were pushing these products out. It became an actual reaction where it wasn't just policy change, it was reactions. And then the government issued policies. And at that point, I mean, we're halfway through the campaign. We had to sit back and say, okay, wait, let's re-strategize. We planned on like a 3-month thing. What are we doing next? Where do you take this conversation now that we've gotten here? But the point being able to do that level of insight and management, sharpening the axe for a year, meant that we're chopping down the tree in half the time. So for you, the organization that is pushing something like this, the case for impact is made. The case for policy change is made. The case for awareness is made. Case for value is made, right? So purely from a strategic standpoint, your strategy has checked all the boxes.